politics muddy the water debate. The next point the Coalition took us to task on was about the Central Valley Project Improvement Act, the CVPIA, that Congress passed in 1992.
Many huge reservoirs and a great network of canals and pumping stations provide water for millions of acres in the Great Valley.
To understand the reason for the CVPIA, it's important to realize that while the Central Valley Project may have been an engineering triumph, 60 years ago when it was designed and built, no one understood what it would do to the environment. So Congress passed the law with the expectation of undoing some of the damage the Central Valley Project had wrought on California rivers and salmon since the project's beginning. The Coalition said that we failed to explain that the CVPIA took up to 800,000 acre-feet of water away from CVP irrigators and gave it to the environment. That's true. We didn't explain that, and we suspect that the Coalition can't explain it either, much less prove that that water ever was made available for its intended purpose. That 800,000 acre-feet of water was supposed to double the size of Central Valley salmon runs. Instead, it appears to have doubled the valley's almond acreage since 1992. Congress asked for an independent review of the CVPIA in 2007. This is the independent review report. You can see it online, too, at this rather lengthy web address. What the reviewers found was startling. They found that not one drop of that 800,000 acre-feet of Central Valley Project water that Congress ordered the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation to use to improve the health of the San Francisco Bay Delta estuary and the salmon that run through it has ever made it through the estuary to the Golden Gate. Not one drop. The science panel actually said that they were flabbergasted to find the Bureau of Reclamation in such flagrant contempt of Congress. So when the Coalition asks just how much water Californians want for the Central Valley and the Bay Delta estuary environment, the answer is simple. We would like to see the law that Congress passed in 1992, directing the Bureau of Reclamation on water allocations, be obeyed. We eat the salmon here. The almonds are shipped abroad. Congress had the right food security idea when it told Reclamation to apply more water to the health of the estuary. So we say to Reclamation, with apologies to Nike, just do it. The Coalition commented on our use of the term junior water rights holder in describing Westlands. They said, junior water rights holder, as explained by Westland's Tom Birmingham, implies the implementation of first in line, first in right. Well, what the Coalition chose not to mention is that Assemblyman Huffman pointed out that these are matters of dispute. But the Central Valley Project is required to comply with California's area county of origin laws. The federal courts will decide if it applies in a recent case filed by the Tehama-Colusa Canal Authority. Because Westlands is south of the Delta Ag Service water contractor, it is among the most junior of CVP water contractors. But here is the bottom line. Westlands is technically not a junior water rights holder. They are less than that. In fact, they are not a water rights holder at all. They are a junior water contractor, getting water from a junior water rights holder, the Bureau of Reclamation. Delta farmers, San Joaquin Exchange contractors, and Sacramento Valley water rights settlement contractors, as well as counties of origin, are all superior to the Bureau of Reclamation's water rights for the San Luis unit of the CVP. So no matter how Westlands wants to spin their objection to being referred to as a junior water rights holder, they can't escape the reality that there are plenty of others ahead of them in line when it comes to access to water, particularly in times of water scarcity. In our Bullies of Westlands video, we showed this Westland executive, a former member of the Bush administration, talking about the Delta fish. The Coalition asked us to understand his comments. $20 to $30 million spent each year by water users to find solutions in the Delta. First of all, we applaud Westland's spending to understand the fish. What we find unacceptable is that their conclusions seem to clearly dismiss the scientific findings that have been reported again and again, including the recently released first phase report of the National Academy of Sciences finding.
The National Academy of Sciences says federal actions keeping water from Westside farmers were scientifically justified.
As for sharing the costs, as taxpayers, we've been paying our share. The public pays significant subsidies for agricultural water users such as Westlands through water, power, and crop subsidies, plus subsidies such as Recovery Act well grants, drainage facilities, grants, and Bond Act funds. Taxpayers subsidize the costs for power and water used by Westlands. The coalition said, unlike private utility companies like PG&E, the federal government is prevented from charging rates that result in profits. In some cases, the interest on the interest plus annual operating costs exceeds the initial investment in the facilities. What is notable is that the Central Valley Project power customers and urban water contractors pay the interest. City folks get dinged twice, first through their water bill and then their power bills. In the case of Trinity County, for example, the Trinity Public Utilities District gets CVP power. Since they pay more than Westlands does, in essence, residents from Trinity County are paying through their electric bills the costs to send Trinity River water to Westlands. This report by the Environmental Working Group calculated the value of Westlands federal water subsidy at $110 million a year in 2002. At the current value of the annual water subsidy, plus millions each year in federal crop subsidies, taxpayer-financed benefits to Westlands will total billions of dollars over the life of their water contracts. In another section of our video, we said that Westlands claimed that modest reduction in water deliveries resulted in fallowed land and unemployment. The coalition responded that more than 20,000 farm workers lost their jobs, and their families were forced to stand in food lines. This is not to be brushed aside. Well, we agree. When people and families are hurting, that should not be brushed aside. Meanwhile, because of the collapse of salmon and the shutdown of the fishery, nearly 23,000 jobs and over $1 billion have been lost. Our point is that there are lots of people hurting.
They don't see any salmon in the store display case, but they see a lot of vegetables. They can't understand why there's plenty of one and none of the other.
Because of the poor way that water is managed in this state. No one is dismissing the pain of unemployed farm workers or farmers who have been struggling. Instead, we simply point out that decisions about water allocations have a much broader impact than the coalition seems to recognize. Again, remember that for more than 2 years, 100% of salmon fishermen were unemployed, impacting thousands and thousands of families and communities dependent on having healthy runs of wild salmon. And that brings us to another point that the coalition made. In the Bullies video, we showed a clip of President Dwight David Eisenhower talking about the military-industrial complex. The coalition said our use of his comments was distasteful. Well, frankly, we don't understand their response. But then in 1961, when President Eisenhower made his statement, the people running the huge corporations manufacturing weapons for the Pentagon didn't like hearing the president's warning either. But we stand by our reference to what he said. This is what he said. You and I and our government must avoid the impulse to live only for today, plundering for our own ease and convenience the precious resources of tomorrow. We ask our thoughtful viewers to think about those words. Is it really worth losing forever wild king salmon just so we can water another 50 to 100,000 more acres of almonds or alfalfa? Remember, extinction is forever, and President Eisenhower's comments apply perfectly. This is also a good place to once again ask Westlands to be good citizens, to join in dialogue in a productive way. Now, the coalition says that Westlands has been engaged in discussions with reasonable groups from all interests. But we know of no instance where they have sat down with salmon fishermen or coastal residents to explain their positions or listen to the plight of those that they have impacted. Finally, the coalition says our video does not foster a meaningful dialogue. Well, we disagree. If it had not been for our video, this rebuttal would not have happened. But let us make another offer, a suggestion that we make seriously and hope for a serious response. We propose a conversation. Let's agree to sit down in a room to talk about water, to talk about people, to talk about living together cooperatively. For starters, let's have 5 or 10 people who represent the coalition, or Westlands, or the California Farm Bureau, meet 5 or 10 people who represent fishermen and coastal communities. Let's make a day out of it, moderated by an impartial arbitrator, and use the day to try and at least understand each other.
The environmentalist groups the people that are trying to steal the water.
Salmon can't live without water.
We could stream the whole event live online and record it on video. We believe that this is a conversation that is long past due, that farmers and fishermen hold the key to helping all Californians understand the need to develop water policies that are fair. This conversation would be a good thing. Here's how to reach us. We're reaching out. Meet us halfway. In the meantime, while we wait to hear back on our proposal, we end this video as we end all of our programs, by saying that it is time for Salmon Water Now.